Picture a field in spring. Everything looks calm on the surface, but beneath the bloom, roots are twisting, breaking soil, seeds are pushing through the darkness to become something new. Human lives work the same way. Beneath the Bloom is a conversation and interview series about becoming. I've always been fascinated by people's stories because while billions of people have existed on this planet, no two lives unfold the same way. Every person carries a private mythology of joy, rupture, survival, and transformation. Most of the time it looks ordinary from the outside, but beneath the surface, there's always a story. This series follows the symbolic path of Persephone's journey. Each guest moved through three stages: the meadow where their story begins, the descent where life cracks open and a dark night arrives, and the return where meaning, sovereignty, and new life emerges. Many of the voices you'll hear come from the occult community, witches, pagans, mystics, seekers, people who have chosen paths outside of the expected. And yet, across wildly different practices, we discover something beautiful. Our lives echo one another, because no matter who we are, we all move through cycles of descent and return. I'm Cernunnos Saint-Sinclair, and welcome to Beneath the Bloom. My guest today is John Beckett. I'm so excited to have him here. John Beckett grew up in Tennessee with the woods right outside of his back door. Wandering through them gave him a sense of connection to nature and to a certain forest god. John is a Druid in the Order of Bards, Ovids and Druids, a member of the Arniac Fane, the ADF, a member of the Denton Covenant Unitarian Universalist Pagans, and a former vice president of the Cups Continental. He's been writing, speaking, teaching, and leading public rituals since 2003. His books, The Path of Paganism and Paganism in Depth, are published by Llewellyn Worldwide. He is the co-editor of the book of Cernunnos, published by ADF. John can be found on his website under the Ancient Oaks, on his Pathos blog, and Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. I will have all of his links in the caption below. John currently lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and earns his keep as an engineer. Hi, John. Thank you so much for coming on to Beneath the Bloom. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be talking to you. So I actually met you. I don't know if you remember meeting me, but I actually met you in 2024 at Mystic South, and I'm so excited to be sitting here and to have this conversation with you. Would you like to go ahead and begin and give yourself a short introduction?
All right. I'm John Beckett. I'm a Druid. I'm a full member of the Druid grade in OBOD, Order of Birds, Ovates, and Druids, and I'm a ordinary member with no particular rank in ADF, Arniac Fane, largest Druid order in this country. Um, Locally, I practice with Denton Cups, the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans. I was the coordinating officer for 12 years and stepped aside from that role in 2017 and thought I was going to do some other things, and then life intervened. And while I am no longer the coordinating officer, I'm still very active in Denton Cups. Um, I keep a blog under the Ancient Oaks. It's part of the Pathos Pagan channel, and Under the Ancient Oaks is also the name of my teaching website, where I do a weekly newsletter and teach online classes and things like that. Yeah, that's just a little bit about me in a few minutes.
Yeah, and I can't wait to get to know you more. So, generally, how this show goes is we start in the meadow, and it's basically getting to know your background. Where were you born, and kind of the story up until you started your magical practice.
All right. Well, let me just start, and uh, by all means interrupt me if something's not clear, or if you want to take the conversation in another direction. I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Grew up in Tennessee. Um, One good thing and one bad thing about where and how I grew up. The good thing was I grew up in a semi-rural area. The woods were quite literally 20 feet outside my back door. And I spent a lot of time just wandering through the woods, just exploring and enjoying nature and being out there. The woods were my safe space. When things weren't going so well, I could go to the woods, and you know, there I just I felt at home there. The downside of that is I grew up in a small fundamentalist Baptist church. And, as with all, I won't say all, as with almost all small children, at first I believed what I was taught, because that's what you do when you're a small child. Your parents teach you this, the authority figures teach you this, and you just assume that's the way it is. But it wasn't long, maybe 8 or 9 years old, before I start realizing that this just didn't make sense. This didn't not only didn't it didn't work for me, it what I was being told didn't make sense. Um, I was being told that that I should read the book of Genesis literally, and the um, the earth was created 6,000 years ago, and Adam and Eve were historical people, and I liked math and I liked science. I became an engineer. Um, I knew that wasn't true. I knew that Darwin was onto something, even if these people didn't think so. Um, and I couldn't get past the idea that someone who was supposedly a God of love and all knowing and all wise and all that sort of stuff would create a system where, at least according to the people in the church I grew up in, the vast majority of people were going to end up in eternal torment, and only a few people were going to end up in heaven. And that just didn't seem right to me. Well, I was living at home with my parents, and I went where they told me to go. Um, when I got out on my own, I stopped going to church. Um, Started going back just more for the social thing after I got out of college, but it just still didn't work. I was trying to be a progressive Christian, and it just didn't speak to me. And then in 1993, for the first time, I met a Wiccan. And he was telling me about his religion, and how that there was a goddess as well as a god, and how um, nature wasn't fallen, nature is sacred, and how magic isn't either of the devil, as the Baptist told me, or just not real, like the science people told me. Magic is real. You can do things with it. Well, this was what I wanted. This is what I had been looking for. And I dove right in, and I bought tools, and I bought books, and I bought tarot cards, and I started out on my practice, and I went nowhere for 8 years because I hadn't dealt with the religious baggage from my childhood. And I still remember it very clearly. It was Thanksgiving night, 2001, and I had an epiphany that said, get serious or move on. And I knew that if I left this behind, I would always wonder what if. So I decided to get serious. And I started reading again, and I started practicing, and I started meditating. I found Joseph Campbell's The Power of Myth. And since then I've got some issues with Joseph Campbell, but he was absolutely what I needed at that time. And I read some Buddhist books, and I read some Jewish books, and got a very different take on the Old Testament, and read some pagan books, and read some Christian books with and learned some of the things that they taught me at Sunday school just weren't so. That the things I'd been told Christians always believed were really fairly new things. And that progressed. I was doing that for a couple of years, and I need for for a year, and then I realized I needed a group, and I didn't want a Wiccan covenant. There were no Druid groves in the area. Heard about this thing called CUPS, the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, and I went to Denton CUPS for Imbolc 2003 just to check it out, and I never left. And then I got pulled into a leadership role, and I felt like I needed some training, so I joined OBOD and went through their training program. And then I had some other issues that I wanted to work through. I wanted to think in public, and so I started a blog. And then I was asked to move my blog to Patheos. And then, okay, you need to turn some of this stuff into a book. And so 2017, The Path of Paganism was published. And then there was another in 2019, Paganism in Depth. And, here I am. Don't blog as much as I used to for a variety of reasons, but I'm still blogging, um, going to events like Mystic South. I was at Convocation in Detroit, 2 weeks ago. Um, Still participating in local rituals with Denton Cups and leading some of them, and teaching online classes. And it's been a fantastic journey, and one that started off kind of rough, but it's sure gotten better as I've moved forward on it.
Oh, that's amazing. So kind of sounded like you started as you were Wiccan, is that correct?
Well, I tried to be a Wiccan because this was the early 90s, and that
Yeah.
was still kind of, you know I'm older than most of the people of that generation, but I'm part of the Barnes and Noble Wiccans of the 1990s, who learned Wicca and witchcraft and paganism from what we got at the bookstore. And and I tried that. I never joined a coven, never trained as a Gardnerian or an Alexandrian or anything like that. I was doing, Scott Cunningham Wicca, and it it was a good place to start. It didn't speak to me.
Hmm.
And then when I discovered Druidry, it was like, that's it. That's what you are.
I love that.
So that was um, that put me on this path that I'm on now.
Did you try any other like branches of the occult? We talked about Wicca and Druidry. Did you try anything else in between or?
I explored I explored some of the classical occult groups, the Fraternity of the Inner Light.
Mhm.
Um, they're a traditional Golden Dawn style occult society, and I explored them for a little while, but I was already well down this path of Druidry that I'm on, and it um, again just didn't really speak to me. Um, my again my own practice is it's grounded in Druidry. I am a Druid, but my my religion is grounded in polytheism and animism. Um, I came back, and a few after dancing around the term for years, finally took the title of witch a few years ago, because I was just doing, my Druid magical practice was virtually identical to my witch friends' witch practice, and for through a variety of things that popped up, I felt like, okay, I need to pick a side, and okay, I'm gonna if I'm gonna do witchy stuff, I need to wear the hat and take the title.
Yeah, metaphorical pointy hat.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a hat, but
Yeah.
metaphorically speaking, yes.
Yes. Um, so you say that Druidry really spoke to you, and I know that you kind of painted this story as you were a child. You were spending a lot of time with, nature. And is there anything else about Druidry that really speaks to you? I don't know. I know it can be hard to put into words like what these things mean to me, but I'm just curious.
Well, the nature side of it certainly was the strongest.
Yeah.
Um, Again, that the woods were my safe space.
Hmm.
The woods were where I felt like I belonged. I could feel the magic in the woods, even if I didn't have the language to describe that as a little kid trying to deal with the fundamentalists on one side,
Yeah.
and my rebellion was in science and reason. So, but still, I could feel that magic if I didn't have the words for it. Um, I I like I feel part of the Celtic heritage in which Druidry is based. Um, the historical Druids were the priests and the scholars and the judges and such of the ancient Celtic society.
Right.
And of course, there they died out.
Yeah.
Um, and there were no Druids for 1,000 years, and anybody who tells you otherwise is um, either has access to some history that nobody else in the world, including the best scholars, have, or they're kidding. But that idea of druids and druidry was in the collective imagination of people in Britain and Ireland, and especially in Wales. And when the um, when the Renaissance began, and there were people rediscovering the classics, rediscovering the stories of the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians, and the people in, again, Britain and Ireland, and especially in Wales, were saying, well, what's ours? And here were the Druids, who by that time were a blank slate, because nobody knew what a Druid was, so it could be whatever they wanted it to be. And it became a vehicle for the preservation of Celtic culture, and especially Welsh culture, in the face of English oppression. Um, my ancestors are the Scots-Irish, the people who lived in the border regions between Scotland and England, and the English moved them over to Northern Ireland to try to control the Irish, and of course that worked really well. And so they moved off to North America and took up residence in Appalachia, and you can draw a straight line from Appalachia to the to Ireland and Scotland. Um, and you don't have to have ancestors in a particular part of the world to relate to that culture. It's it's land, it's gods, but a lot of times it helps, and it did for me.
Hmm.
And it, reading the stories, reading the Mabinogi, reading some of the ancient Irish tales, um, learning about learning about their gods, learning about the fair folk, um, visiting those places, and just um, again, just feeling like, okay, this is I have roots here. I'm from Tennessee. I'm an American. I'm not Irish. I'm not Scottish. I'm an American. I'm from Tennessee. I live in Texas now, but those roots go deep, and those roots go deep back to Scotland and Ireland and Wales and Britain. And um, it's nice to explore that heritage.
Have you ever had the opportunity to go to any of the like Druid locations in those areas?
Yes, that's a fun question, because what is a Druid location? Because
Yeah, I guess.
when somebody mentions a Druid location, the first thing people think of is Stonehenge. Um, of course, the tradition is that the Druids gather at Stonehenge on the summer solstice, and we have proof of that going all the way back to 1880. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
it's Stonehenge was built, rebuilt, and abandoned it had been abandoned for 1,000 years before the first Druid ever walked in Britain.
Hmm.
Um, We don't know if the Druids used Stonehenge or not.
Hmm.
They very well may have. I mean, I look at it and said, how could you not use that? But it's also possible that was, this belonged to to the old ones, and this is something we don't deal with. We'd have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
But I've been to some of the ancient sites. Have been to Stonehenge. Been to Newgrange in Ireland, where the the what Professor Ronald Hutton calls a tomb shrine, where for 3 days at the winter solstice, the rising sun shines through a box over the door, goes up and illuminates the pathway to the back chamber, and then after 17 minutes retreats. Built 5,000 years ago,
So cool.
and it still doesn't leak. It's a magical place.
Yeah.
Um, I've been to Rathcrogan in Ireland, the Cave of the Morrigan.
Wow.
Um, so I mean, um, those are just amazing sites. But if you want to talk about a Druid site, um, I was in Wales on the island of Anglesey. I was hosted by Christopher Hughes, the head of the Anglesey Druid Order, who's just a wonderful person and um, has has built an order there on Anglesey. Anglesey was the center of Druids and Druidry in ancient times, and in 64 CE, the Romans led a campaign to crush them because the Romans didn't really care what religion you were. They cared if you paid your taxes and kept the peace.
Yeah.
And the Druids were a source of nationalistic rebellion against the empire, and so they went there. And there was the Roman historian has a record of it, of the Menai Straits massacre. And I've been there, and I still remember the impression I got when I was there. It was it was like the spirits of the place, the spirits of those ancient druids were saying, "Welcome. We're glad you're here. We're glad you've carried on the role of the druid. Now go home to Texas and build it there because that's where you're needed."
Hmm.
So again, I'm inspired by those places. I'm honored to have been with them. My work is here.
Yeah. Yeah. Still that must be so cool to like visit and feel that energy and kind of witness all of that history. Do you remember the first magical moment? Because I know you said like you spent years kind of trying to make it work, and then it sounds like you needed to go through some deconstruction before you genuinely felt like you found your path. Do you remember like when did it really start working for you? I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, but
It's a good question. It was there was the epiphany,
Hmm.
and there was that 8 years of fumbling around.
Hmm.
No, excuse me, the 8 years there was the introduction, the 8 years of fumbling around, and then the epiphany, and then I went to work. And it wasn't any one, I can't point to one thing that said this is where the switch flipped.
Okay.
It was, oh, I've been meditating every day for 6 weeks now. Things are kind of different now. And it's recognizing that I was building it up gradually. Um, so um, my first group initiation was important,
Hmm.
um, because this was the first time I drew a line in the sand and stepped over it. And I was worried of, am I going to back out? Am I going to feel like I'm doing the wrong thing? And it felt right.
Oh, yeah.
And that was very important.
Hmm.
Um, and then since then, it's just been, there's not been any one big thing. It's little thing after little thing after little thing. And all of a sudden you look back and wow, I've come that far.
Yeah.
Um,
I really love that. And I love that you're saying that because I feel like sometimes when we, especially with the way that we consume content, we get these very fantastical stories. And for people who maybe don't have those fantastical moments, they feel a little bit like not as valid. So I love to hear someone as accomplished as you say, I put in work and I got results and they took work and they took time. And I think that's an important narrative to share as well.
Yeah, I get that a lot from people who who want I want to believe.
Yeah,
Um, but they're looking for some big uh,
drama.
something big and dramatic.
Yeah.
They're looking for Zeus to throw a lightning bolt, um, or the Morrigan to appear bodily and hand them a sword,
Yeah.
and it rarely works. So some people do have those experiences, but they're rare.
Mm,
For most of us it is a case of deciding to follow a path and then following that path diligently and dealing with the ups and downs. And again, then after 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, looking back and realizing how far you've come.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I have been exploring a lot of that myself, and I think we all need to take some time to reflect on how much we've grown and kind of pat ourselves in the back about that a little bit. There's
Yes.
because I feel like the further that I get into like the magical sphere, I'm like, oh, I could learn this, oh, I can learn this, and it's like this never-ending journey, and that can be daunting and also amazing. But then a lot of times I'm not looking back at how far I've come. I'm just like, oh, there's so much more. There's so much more. So. I think that there's an important balance in both of those things. So now I kind of want to talk about your descent. Have you ever had like a really dark night of the soul or any time that you've kind of used magic to overcome?
So without going into some deeply personal details, um, 2024 was a very bad year for me.
Hmm.
Um, I had some health issues. I had some work-related issues. My mother was in her 90s and in poor health, and her mind was starting to go.
Hmm.
Um, and there were some other things going. It was a really difficult time. And to the point where I had to start pulling back. And I had to say, no, I'm not teaching any online classes this year. Um, no, I'm not going to do any more consultations. I do tarot readings. I do spiritual direction. I've got to say, I don't, I'm not, I'm going to wind down the clients I have and I'm going to not take any more. Just, I, for about, from about December of 23 till about um, June of 24, I just had to pull back and, okay, we're just going to focus on making it through today.
Hmm.
One of the things that helped immensely was my daily spiritual practice. I started this 2012, 2013 of praying 4 times a day
Wow.
and brief prayers, but pausing to pray and making weekly offerings to Cernunnos, to the Morrigan, to my ancestors. Um, and that that connection, that foundation that it gives, it reminded me, this is who you are, this is what's most important, and you're going to keep doing this because it's who you are,
Mhm.
and you're going to keep moving. Because sometimes, yeah, I'm an engineer. I like to fix things, and sometimes you can't fix things. Sometimes all you can do is just keep moving.
Yeah.
And I just kept moving and I did the things I needed to do. You don't think bad things rarely improve on their own. I was doing the things even though I really didn't feel like it. Um, and then I did the things that I needed to do. and the things that were out of my control started improving. And um, by the end of 2024, I was in a much better place. Um, my mother finally passed in January of 25. She was 93 years old. She had 90 good years and three really bad ones.
Mhm.
And she was ready to go. And she's my mother. I miss her, but I'm glad she's not suffering anymore.
Of course.
And we, you know, back to moving on. Um, I think things are a little difficult for everybody right now, with everything going on in the world. And I've got that foundation. I've got
Mhm.
the foundation of the regular spiritual practice. I've got I've got a handful of friends who I talk to on a regular basis who share this path, and we can talk about what we're doing spiritually and magically. Um, and and sometimes just grabbing a beer or a cup of tea with somebody can be a big help. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's no again, no dramatic stories here. Just well, here I am at this age, this late in my career, after having done as much as I've done, and you know, bad stuff happens to me too.
Yeah.
You're never exempt from the challenges of life.
Yes.
And I had to pull in. I had to say, okay, I'm not going to try to do things I can't do. I'm just going to do the things I need to sustain myself and to make things better for tomorrow.
First of all, I'm sorry to hear about your mother. And again, it sounds like it's kind of echoing your story of how you got here is you put in the work, even when it's hard, and even when you might not see the results directly, it sounds like you put in the work every single day to show up for your practice and show up for yourself and show up for your ancestors, and things did get better. And that just seems to be the lesson that you're teaching over and over again.
So much of life is just showing up day after day, being persistent, um, not giving up when things get hard. Um, Sometimes it's knowing when to give up. Sometimes it's knowing when to say, this isn't working. This is harmful. I need to stop this and I need to start something else. I need to get out of a bad job. I need to get out of a bad relationship. Um, I, you know, Whatever it isn't working for you. But until you're ready to make those kind of, big decisions, um, there's no substitute for perseverance.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I love to hear that because again, sometimes I think we're looking for very dramatic, quick fixes, especially with I think the way that like our society is set up today is everything is fast and quick and I want my answers now. I want my package now. I want everything, instantaneously. So this idea of like stubborn persistence, I love that. Um, so I want to kind of ask you another question, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I'm interested in your Christian deconstruction path. Was it difficult for you to deconstruct? It sounded like you already had some questionings when you were younger, but growing up in fundamentalism can be very like rigid. Was it difficult for you to go through that deconstruction period?
Yes, very much, very, very difficult. Um, and this was before, I mean, we're talking you know, while I was really doing the work. I mean, we're talking the late 90s and early 2000s. So this is the whole evangelical movement that you see with all the emphasis on deconstructing. That's a fairly recent thing,
Yeah.
and they have a lot. And they have a lot of resources that I didn't have, and I'm so
Yeah.
grateful they have those resources. But yes, um, it was a lot of work. Um, it At the end of the day, it started when I said I can't believe things that I know aren't true.
Mm.
I don't care what the preacher says. I don't care what the other, my parents say. Um, if they tell me I have to believe something and I think that's either not true or just not ethical, um, I can't do that. Um, I think the thing that got me was I was I was told that everything was black and white, and the evangelicals, their emphasis on everyone getting saved. And here's how you can get saved, and here's how you can know it. And me being a literal-minded little kid, I read those Bible verses, and that's not what it said. That was poetry. That was um, that was a certain person speaking to a group of people in a certain context that isn't us here and now. And they were telling me that this is crystal clear, and it was anything but.
Mm.
And the thing that got me was when I finally understood, okay, these people are wrong about evolution. They're wrong about the age of the earth. What else are they wrong about?
Yeah.
And some of them will even admit it. When evangelical fundamentalism is built on a foundation of young earth creationism. If there is no historical Adam and Eve, if the first couple of chapters of Genesis aren't literally true, then their whole story, the meta narrative is the phrase they like to use. Their whole meta narrative of creation and sin, original sin, and the fall and everything after that, that all crumbles, and it does. And when I realized, okay, this isn't true, then what else did they not tell me? And again, I was reading some of the things they didn't teach me in Sunday school. And I was told that um, I was told that the rapture is going to happen, any day now. And Christians have always believed that. Well, no, they didn't. The rapture was invented in the 1840s in the United States. Um, Nobody told me that. Um, so much that again that they didn't tell me, or what they told me was just flat out wrong. Intellectually, deconstructing that intellectually was some work, but it was some pretty straightforward work. The hard part was getting those tentacles out of my mind, getting those tentacles out of my soul, because there's a saying that people have attributed to it's generally attributed to the Jesuits: give me the boy until he is 7 and I will show you the man. Those stories we're told when we're 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, those stories stay with us.
Yeah.
And they don't go away just because we all of a sudden decide they don't make sense anymore.
Hmm.
Um, I couldn't just decide I don't believe them anymore because they kept creeping back in. I had to crowd them out with something better. And that's why for me anyway, it was so necessary to put the work into um, building a strong religious foundation in paganism and polytheism and Druidry. Um, that's why it was so necessary for me to start going to pagan rituals and leading pagan rituals and taking an initiation and doing all those things, because all those good experiences I had in those ritual circles, that just crowded out all those bad memories. And again, that's another thing where it's a little bit at a time. And it was years before I finally, while it was years before the doubt stopped coming, the fear stopped coming. Um, but it did, because again, kept, I built the intellectual foundation, but then I built that experiential foundation. Um, that replace the bad experiences with the good experiences. Um, Plus, when you know, you have these experiences of gods and spirits and magic, and it happens once, and well, that's a coincidence. You happen twice, and oh, that's confirmation bias. Well, the fourth or fifth or eighth time it happens, you start figuring out it's easier just to assume that this is real and going with it than keep trying to rationalize it away all the time. And it took that experience to crowd out the old bad experiences.
Have you always been sort of like the leader type? How did you end up in the leader roles?
I was absolutely not the leader type.
Yeah.
I was I wanted to be and I still think I function best as the advisor, as again, the ancient druids were not kings. They were the advisors to kings. They were the priests. They were the 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 keepers of records and lore. And that fits my personality and my desires much more closely than being a leader. But I got to Denton Cups, and they had some good leaders. They had the founders of the Denton Cups are still there, but they didn't have enough. And there was a need, and I was asked to fill that need. And so I was going to do the best I could to fill it. And yeah, it's it's um it's been responding to needs. I would prefer to be the executive officer, not the captain. But if I need to be the captain, I'll be the captain.
Uh, so I do you work with a specific deity? Is there like a deity that you really, really leaned on the most? Or have you had like what has your arc been working with deity?
So Cernunnos is first among equals with me. He was the. I am now convinced that when I was feeling safe and comforted in the woods, he was there. And
Oh,
if he had shown up there when I was 7 years old, I would have had no context for that. It would have scared me silly.
sure.
Um, so he waited until I was ready. Yes, I am a sworn priest of Cernunnos. Um, uh, Jason Mankey and I edited the book of Cernunnos as a devotional anthology for him. Um, uh, Cernunnos is first. I am a sworn priest of Danu. Um, and the scholars are debate about who Danu was, and for me, she's the lady of the waters and the mother goddess. Uh, I am a sworn druid of the Morrigan. I am not her priest. I am her druid. Um, she's a very active deity and has been for the last 15 years or so that I've been aware of. Um, Battle goddess, lady of sovereignty, chooser of the slain. Um, got a lot going on right now. Um, and I am honored to be part of her work. Those are the three deities with whom I have an oath relationship. Um, I have others who are their statues are on my altar, and I pray to them every night. And then um, I have those who I will um, step into a role of service for them when we're doing a ritual where they're honored as the deity of the occasion. Um, but yeah, Cernunnos, Danu, the Morrigan, those are the three I have formal relationships with.
That's so cool. And I love to hear about I'm kind of a little bit newer to deity work, so I love to hear people talk about how deity has shown up for them. And I feel like it's this common story I hear of people looking back and recognizing that deity was with them a lot longer than they maybe consciously knew. And it sounds like that is same for your story as well. So, what would you say to somebody who is going through their own either underworld where, like 2024 was for you, or going through their own deconstruction?
Um, the the first thing is don't give up. Keep moving. Um, the the this world things and the dealing with the theological baggage, um, they're related, but to me at least I approach them differently. The with Particularly with the spiritual things, you need a good intellectual foundation, but this ultimately isn't an intellectual problem. It's an experiential problem. So do your reading, read good books, read good authors, um, learn the things that they didn't teach you in Sunday school or whatever Sunday school was for you at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, but also start building a new practice, a new spirituality, um, a new religion that speaks to you, because you've got to crowd out the bad with the good.
Hmm. I love that. And I mean this very fondly. It just sounds like your stubbornness and persistence has gotten to you where you're at, and I love that. Um, so I'm curious, like, do you have a sort of like specific magical habit or, tool that you really have leaned on long term that has really helped you?
Um, I tend to be a magical magpie. I pick up things, and if it
Yeah.
works, I'll keep it. Um, for a long time, I have been very fond of sigil magic, the chaos magic version, where you write your goal, you write your target statement out in plain English, and you cross out the vowels, cross out the repeated letters, smush all that into a sigil, charge it, and let it go. And I've had really good results with that.
Mhm.
Last year or two, I have done a lot of tarot magic,
Mm.
where you pick three or four, for me, usually four cards to represent who you are and your situation and your goal and your methods, and you meditate on those cards, and you visualize what you're doing, what you're going to do, and especially you visualize your in state, what you want things to be like when you're done. I just finished teaching a 4-week class on tarot for spellcasting. Um, and if anybody's interested, that's on the under the ancientoaks.com website. It's on demand, so you can take it anytime you want. Um, those are the two things that that I've really used most in recent years.
Okay, yeah, that's super cool. Thank you for sharing that. Do you have any magical hot takes that you wanted to talk about? If not, I have another question for you.
Um, Intention is not everything.
Ooh, okay. Would you like to elaborate?
Intention is where we begin,
Mm,
but intention alone will get you nowhere.
mm,
Intention has to be followed up with action, both magical action and mundane action. Um, and it has to have a path for it to work. Um, no amount of of setting an intention for walking through walls is going to help you walk through walls. Uh, Now, doing a spell to find a door, that's another subject. Um, yeah, intention isn't everything. Intention is where we begin. Um, I like the witch's pyramid from the 19th from Eliphas Levi in the 19th century. To know, to will, to dare, and to keep silence.
mm.
So yeah, that's my magical hot take. Intention isn't everything.
As someone who began your practice in the 90s, how have you watched the magical space change and how do you feel about it?
That is such a good question. Um, I am on one hand, I'm envious of the people, um, because because so much is available right now and it's so easy to get. Um, whether it's books or websites or videos. Um, if you have a question now, something you're interested in, you can go to Google and you can find something. And if you've got just a little bit of discernment, you can find something good. Um, in the 90s, we had, what was on the shelves in Barnes and Noble. And of course, my friends who've been doing this since the 60s and 70s say, yeah, well, you were lucky to have that because we had two books.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the big thing is that I have seen is so much information is available. It's so easy to find. The downside is there's a lot more garbage out there now.
Yeah.
There's a lot more people who are teaching who have no business teaching. Um, there are people who are trying to make some money off of it. There's better ways to make money off of magic. But yeah, um, that's the downside is it's not all good.
Yeah.
You've got to have some discernment, and if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Hmm. Sounds like access to everything is great and access to everything is bad.
It
So,
is.
so you say that not everyone should be teachers. What, in your opinion, and someone who's also a leader, what do you think makes a good teacher and what do you think makes a good leader? And what should someone look for if they're either trying to become that or if they're looking to learn from someone?
If you want to be a leader, if you want to be a teacher, ask yourself why.
Hmm.
Do you want to be the authority figure? That's not a good reason to be a teacher.
Hmm.
Um, the reason to teach is to help people learn and grow. And I tell people, at the end of the day, I know what I've done. I know what's worked for me. I can tell you what's worked for me, but you're going to have to go away and do it yourself. I can't do it for you. And also, what worked for me may not work for you. There's, another dozen paths out there that are available to you, and one of them may be better for you. Um, I If you want to be a teacher, what are you going to teach? And make sure it's something you know. Teach from your teach from your experiences, teach from your life experiences, teach from your magical experiences. Um, you have to have done it or you can't teach it. I know that among professional teachers, there's the whole idea that a good teacher can learn the material and then present it to a class in a short amount of time. And maybe that's true for a math class, but for a magic class, um, you need to have that experience. I'll be honest, I wanted to teach before I was ready. And someone was looking out for me because they didn't send me any students. And by the time that I was asked to teach, then I was ready.
Hmm. I love that. That's definitely good advice. And if someone is looking for like a mentor or they're looking to learn from someone, what do you think that because as we're talking about access to everything, how does someone build that discernment if they don't really know what they're looking at or what they're looking for?
So things are so much different than they were certainly in the 90s, but definitely, especially before then, when if you in the early days of Wicca, um, if you wanted to be a Wiccan, the only way you could be a Wiccan was to find a coven that would take you in and train you. Um, and then Buckland wrote Saxon Witchcraft and presented a do-it-yourself version, and now people could start to learn from books. So you don't have to have a teacher. You don't have to have a one-on-one teacher. For most people, you'll be better off if you start out working on your own. Do that initial work on your own. There's 100 paths out there. There's 1,000,000 paths out there. Which one do you want to follow? Um, do the basic do the basic research. Because if you come to me as a rank begin as a beginner, absolute beginner, that's what I'm going to tell you to do. Go do some survey work. Um, see what's out there. See what you like. See what calls to you. Um, when you get to the point where, okay, this is the path I'm following, and either that path requires one teaching. If you want to be, there's some versions of witchcraft that are only passed through from teacher to student. You got to go find somebody. Um, if you're in one of those traditions, or if you just get to the point where, hey, I need some help here, um, then you start looking. Again, you've got the internet at your disposal. Ask around. Um, if you're interested in Druidry, ask a Druid. Um, if you're interested in witchcraft, ask a witch. Um, ask around, see who they recommend, see um, um, see who many people recommend. Understand that a lot of teachers, particularly these days, don't take a lot of one-on-one students. It's you know our movement has shifted. It's less one-on-one and more teaching through books and teaching through classes and such, and working together in groups. If you think you've got somebody, you think somebody is um, you think you got somebody who could be a teacher, a mentor, a counselor, then again, ask around. What do people say about them? Um, what kind of a feeling do you get around them? Do they respect you? Do their other students respect them? Um, do they respect their other students? Do they have clear boundaries? There are still people out there calling themselves teachers who are looking um, to sexually exploit students. There are still teachers out there who are just looking to have people tell them how great they are to boost their ego. Um, a lot of this a lot of this is just ordinary interpersonal relationships. If you wouldn't like working with this person, if you wouldn't like hanging out with this person, they're probably not a good teacher.
Who have been your like magical heroes?
That's another good. You asked some good questions.
Thank you.
So let me. I think heroes is probably the wrong word.
Okay.
Um, but there are some people who I have really have helped me out in some difficult situations. Thorn Coil. Thorn doesn't teach that much anymore. She's working more on activism and on writing books, but she was very helpful to me in the early 2000s. I was on a spiritual plateau, and she got me unstuck. And uh, she's still out there doing some work, but put a lot of she was very helpful to me. Ivo Dominguez Jr. is somebody I consider my spiritual elder. He's not that much older than me, but he's been doing this a lot longer. He's built magical groups and written a lot of books, and um, really is somebody um, who I consider my elder. Um, and I'm not in his lineage or anything like that, but when I need an elder's opinion, I go to Evo. Um, and I will mention I'll mention Christopher Hughes. He's the head of the Anglesey Druid Order. He's a good friend, but he has done about he's had like four different careers and he's done well in all of them. And he's brought a formal Druid organization back to Anglesey for the first time in 2,000 years, and that's just amazing. Plus, he's just a wonderful person and a tremendous presenter and ritualist. Um, I consider myself a good ritualist, and he's so far above me, it's not even funny. Um, so yeah, those are three people that um, those are three people who I won't call them heroes. I will call them elders and mentors. And going back on to your previous question, something Thorne Cole said that I like to repeat every now and then. Never trust a teacher who only has students. If if you have a um, if you're looking at a teacher, who's their teacher? Who's their elder? Who do they rely on when they run into stuff they don't know, when they need counsel? And if there's not anybody, then they may not be a very good teacher.
So you mentioned elders a lot, and I have been sitting on this feeling that, and you might disagree with me, that our current magical sphere, I don't think that we quite look at elders as much as I think that I personally think that we should. And I'm just curious if you have an opinion on that.
That's We tend to forget our elders. And that is part of that's technology. The first generation, the first generation aren't necessarily people you're going to find on TikTok. Um, they may not, you know, they grew up in a different environment. Um, you get old, you start to step back from you don't write as many books, you don't write as many articles, you don't go to as many gatherings, and out of sight, out of mind. And we forget people like Phaedra Bonowitz is somebody who comes to mind. I mean, um, I won't say she's become obscure, but she certainly doesn't get the attention that she used to and the attention she really deserves. Brilliant lady, has done some amazing things. Still a great witch, great magician. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of recency bias. We think we elevate the people who are popular here and now.
Yeah.
Um, there's there is and we have to make room for the next generation. You you don't get to we're none of us are Queen Elizabeth. None of us are going to hold some high level office, high level position, forever just because of who we are.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we tend to forget our elders, and sometimes for legitimate reasons, but also we lose something when we do that.
I think that one of the ways in which I've kind of been circling around this thought, I think are two paths. One is because I'm Asian American, and I think when I look at American culture through a lens, we don't respect our elders the same way that we do in Asian American culture. So I have that lens, and the second one that I have is I see a lot of focus on ancestor veneration and ancestor worship. And I think that while that might be the people that we don't have contact with nowadays, I think that also includes people that are here and now. And I just kind of see like And I agree with you. I think a lot of that is technology, who is kind of flashy and who is in our faces online. But I just feel like there should be more looking at why we practice things that we do. And I think a lot of those answers are still here among us, of understanding. And I guess I'm not really asking you a question, I'm just sharing my thoughts.
And I tend to agree with you, um, particularly on the ancestor part. Um, Too many of us want to honor our ancestors, but we want to honor a certain kind of ancestor, an ancestor from a certain place,
Yeah.
and who lived in a certain time period. Um, we want to we're big on our um, we're big on our ancestors who were druids or whatever, and we forget about those all those generations in between the druids and the people we knew. And then on the other hand, as you're quite rightly pointing out, we've we tend to forget about those living ancestors who, if it was, my daily prayer is, um, be, um, because of you, we have life. Uh, we are your children. We build on your foundations.
Mm.
And some of those people who built the foundations that we stand on, that we practice on, they're still with us.
Mhm.
And we can learn a lot by listening to them. And, some of them, some of them can use our support.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Thank you so much for your time and sharing your wisdom and your story. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you and get to know you better. My last question for you is, what are you currently blooming into? I know you kind of mentioned where we could find you, but if you don't mind rehashing that, and are you working on any exciting projects? What can we look at from you?
So if you want to find me, look for me on social media. I'm mainly on Facebook and Instagram. I'm also on Blue Sky and Threads. Um, you can find me at my Pathos blog. Google John Beckett Pathos, it'll come up. Undertheancientoaks.com is my teaching site. Those are the easiest places to find me. I'm not hard to find. I've got a couple of projects in the works that I'm not going to talk about because that whole to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silence bit. Um, um, I've got a couple things I'm working on that hopefully will people will see, not this year, but maybe next year. We'll see how it goes. What am I blooming into? Well, um, my days working a day job are coming to an end.
Okay.
If all goes well, I can become a full-time druid at the end of the year.
Wow.
And that's going to be a major transition. It's going to be accompanied with a cross-country move because while I have some, I've met some wonderful people here in Texas. Texas is just not a very welcoming place anymore, and I need to be somewhere else. So yeah, I've got some big transitions coming up in the next year, probably early next year, and a lot of work goes into them, and I've done a lot of it, and I've got some more to do.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm really excited for your change, and you get to like really focus on your practice and, I assume teaching and sharing and spend your time doing that. I'm really excited to see what comes from you when you get all that time. So,
It will be nice.
yes, for sure. Am I going to see you at Mystic South this summer?
Yes, I will be there.
Excellent.
I
Okay.
have I have I've submitted two workshop proposals. We'll see what the programming committee what they like.
Uh-huh.
But I will definitely be there.
And are you going to hold ritual again?
No.
No. Okay, not this.
It may be a while before I do another ritual like
Okay.
that. Were you at the ritual last year?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. I've done. two rituals, three rituals at Mystic South, and they've all been amazing. They've been great. They've been fun to do. People have gotten a lot out of them. They are a lot of work.
I'm sure. I'm
They
sure.
are a lot of work, and
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm not young anymore, and I'm I may have done my last big production ritual at a conference.
Oh, don't tell me that. Now you missed you're telling me I missed my opportunity.
I'm sure at some point I say that because the memory the memory of how much that took out of me is still strong.
I
I
understand.
imagine there will come a day when either I want to do it again or someone says, "You Druid, do this ritual," and
Okay.
and so I go do it.
That person's me, watch. Thank you so much for your time and thank you for your wisdom. I so appreciate you. Are there any closing thoughts that you would like to share?
I think well, just these are difficult times. We have an obligation to be good ancestors. You mentioned ancestors. Someday we will be the ancestors. Let's live our lives so that when the next generation looks back on us, they can say, yeah, they did well. They kept up their practices. They supported their community. They built up the pagan community, magical community, spiritual community. They took care of each other. They helped each other through some difficult times. Live so as to be worthy of the honor of those who come after us.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you this summer.
Very good.
If you enjoyed this conversation today, please take a moment to like, subscribe, share, help me make a sacrifice to the algorithm gods. It helps keep my work going. Also, if there's someone in particular you would love for me to interview, I'm always looking to hear more stories. And as always, may your path be sacred, your shadow sovereign, and may you always bloom wildly. I'll see you next time. A member of the ADF, I don't know how to say that. Arnyakfin? Arnyakfin? Arnyakfin. Where did I find out how to say this? Arnyakfin. Arnyakfin.